Hi everybody, I've decided to do a bookshelf tour. I haven't been tagged by anybody, but I thought I'd let you know how my books are laid out because there is a special way of how they are laid out. This is kind of an important shelf. This is my series shelf, I'm calling it. And you've also got some of my pops here. Show you some of them. Here we are. So starting here, I have Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Just going to move Jon Snow. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Quidditch Through the Ages. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. The Tales of Beedle the Bard. All of them by J.K. Rowling. And now on to my Tolkien collection. We have The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, I can never say this one, The Silmarillion, that one, and Unfinished Tales, all of them by J.R.R. Tolkien. And what we have here are the first 6, a series of unfortunate events by Lemony Snicket. I did start collecting these when I was in secondary school, but I stopped because I couldn't finish this book, number 6, so I gave up. The last 2 are my mismatch ones, which is the beginning of my alphabetical order bookshelves. Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. Persuasion by Jane Austen. They're my favourite covers because they're so pretty. I'll also introduce to you my pops on this shelf. Here is Captain Hook from Once Upon a Time with his hook. And I have Mr. Darcy and Lizzie Bennet from Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I love her dress in this one. Finally, on the end, I have Jon Snow in his castle black uniform and Daenerys Targaryen with her dragon. So, continuing on from my alphabetical order, which I mean by they are in alphabetical order of authors. We have Louisa May Alcott's Good Wives, one of my Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Pride and Prejudice and Zombies by Jane Austen and Seth Graham Smith. Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. How do you say it? I don't know. Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. I have 2 books by Linda Badoli, which are Darcy and Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy Takes a Wife. Now we move on to my Enid Blyton book. I have here the ones that I can find. I seem to have lost most of them, which I'm really sad about because they are my favourite books. We have the famous 5 here, running all the way from 5 Run Away Together, 5 Go Adventuring Again, 5 Go to Smuggler's Top, 5 On a Treasure Island. This one was my favourite book growing up. This isn't the one that I actually had as a child, but this was my favourite famous 5 book. 5 Go Off in a Caravan, 5 Go Off to Camp, and as you can see, this is pretty old. It's yellow. Ooh, bookmark. Ah, I found a bookmark. 5 Get Into Trouble. Okay, those are my famous 5 books. Now I move on to my Mallory Towers books. First term at Mallory Towers. 3rd year at Mallory Towers. In the 5th at Mallory Towers. And finally last term at Mallory Towers. Moving on to my classics. The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. Professor by Charlotte Bronte, The Magician's Guild, Trudy Canavan, Tom Clancy's Under Fire, written by Grant Blackwood, The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay. Here we have Cinderella's Sister by Dilly Court. Finally, we have Jurassic Park and The Lost World. Paddington likes to keep this shelf company. And on here for my pops we have the Scarlet Witch from the Avengers. She's a bobblehead. We have the Joker from Suicide Squad in tuxedo clothing. And we have Harley Quinn in her cocktail dress from the Suicide Squad. Could not split them up. It was not fair. Now on to the next shelf. We start with Roald Dahl, my Roald Dahl collection. Not a lot here. I've only just found out that I have lost my Matilda book, which was one of my favourites. Boy and Going Solo, The BFG, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Danny Champion of the World, Fantastic Mr. Fox, George's Marvellous Medicine, and The Twits. Moving on, we have Arthurian Legends by Chrétien de Troyes. I think that's how you say it. Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens, Room by Emma Donoghue, Three Musketeers, and 20 Years After by Alexandre Dumas. Outlander, Dragonfly in Amber by Diana Gabaldon. Unmasked by Colette Gale. My Collins classic of North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. My Penguin Library cover of North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. Robin Hood by Henry Gilbert. Poldark, Ross Poldark. Poldark Demelza by Winston Graham. Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. The Odyssey by Homer. Les Miserables Volume 1. Les Miserables Volume 2 by Victor Hugo. Death Comes to Pemberley by P.D. James. All My Friends Are Superheroes by Andrew Kaufman. I don't keep anything on the shelf, but at the moment I'm keeping wedding presents on here. On this shelf I keep all my historical fiction novels. As you can see, it takes up the whole shelf. So let's start with my Philippa Gregory collection, which starts here, and it's my biggest historical collection so far. These are in no particular order. We have the Boleyn Inheritance, the Constant Princess. This one is my favourite. I like this one. The Kingmaker's Daughter, the Other Queen, the Queen's Fool, the Red Queen. I ruined it because the sticker didn't come off properly. The White Queen with the stand-in with the TV cover. Finally, the Virgin's Lover. And next, moving on to the rest of them. This is Lord Robert by Jean Plaidy. Mary Queen of Scots by Jean Plaidy. This one is a little bit water damaged, so I won't be reading this ever again. The Darling Strumpet by Gillian Bagwell. The King's Mistress by Gillian Bagwell. The Wilding by Maria McCann. Again, this one's a bit water damaged, so I probably won't read this for a while. Now moving on to my next biggest historical fiction author, which is Anne O'Brien. We have The Forbidden Queen, The King's Concubine. This was one of my favourites. The King's Sister. I haven't read this one yet, but I am working towards reading it. The Scandalous Duchess and The Virgin Widow. Again, this was one of my favourites. The only thing I keep on this shelf is some pipes that I bought in Peru. They're pretty cool. Okay, excuse the bounciness, my tripod doesn't go all the way down to the floor. This shelf is my big heavy books. So here we have my big version of Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. We have my Doctor Who Where's the Doctor book, which my friend bought me for my birthday, I think. We have the only graphic novel that I actually own, which is Once Upon a Time, Out of the Past. This is my most precious book, and I'm not taking it out of the cover. This is how precious I find it. This is Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. This was given to me after my granddad died, so it's kind of precious to me. The Late Hector Kipling by David Thewlis. Yes, that is Remus Lupin from Harry Potter. All I Know Now by Carrie Hope Fletcher. The Lady Elizabeth by Alison Weir. Long Way Down by Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman. The White Princess by Philippa Gregory. This is my big Narnia collection with all 7 books, as you can see, and I'm reading my way through them. This is the front cover from the Prince Caspian film. We have Phantom by Susan Kay. Kormadi and We Live by Lewis Jones. I had to read half of this for university, and I actually did. It was a pretty good book. A bit sad in places. This shelf is quite miscellaneous, so it has lots of different things on here. We have Lewis Hunter's screenwriting, 434. The Art of Dramatic Writing on Direct and Film by David Mamet. The Student Cookbook. I love this. We have my Wreck This Journal. Pointless Book by Alfie Daines. Pointless Book 2 by Alfie Daines. Long Way Round by Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman. That's Another Story by Julie Walters. Call the Midwife by Jennifer Worth. Theory Test and the Highway Code. Practical Test. I don't drive yet. Charles Dickens' The Life by Claire Tomalin. Also have on this shelf the first Bible I ever owned as a child. This was a christening present. Right, there is a purpose on my next set of shelves. I have put my first 3 shelves, well 2.5 shelves, into a collection for my Rory Gilmore Reading Challenge. They go from They go in alphabetical order of author's last name, like you do in a library. So beginning, we have Louisa May Alcott's Little Women, Emma by Jane Austen, Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen, my other copy of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, my very battered and old version of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I have two versions of Room with a View by E.M. Forster, The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, Lord of the Flies by William Golding, The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I hope so you say it. On all these shelves I've decorated them with candles. I've never lit them, but they're there. So here we go, onto the second shelf, which is again my Rory Gilmore Reading Challenge books. This is On the Road, Carrie by Stephen King, The Shining by Stephen King, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. As you can see, this is the film cover. Wicked by Gregory Maguire, Atonement by Ian McEwan. As you can see, this is the film cover. The Crucible by Arthur Miller, Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller, 1984 by George Orwell, My Sister's Keeper by Jodi Picoult. Again, this is the movie cover. The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, The Fountainhead, Hamlet by William Shakespeare, Henry V by William Shakespeare, Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare, Macbeth by William Shakespeare, and look, a very young Sean Bean. And finally, Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. Okay, onto the third shelf. Only a few more of these are part of the Rory Gilmore Reading Challenge collection. We have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with The Merry Men and Other Stories by R.L. Stevenson, Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, Charlotte's Web by E.B. White, Stuart Little by E.B. White, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. It's a little bit covered in paint and a little bit battered, it's been in my bag. A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams. And the last book in my Rory Gilmore Reading Challenge collection is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. The next set of books are a continuation from when I finished just before my historical fiction collection. So we have Fallen by Lauren Kate, followed by Torment by Lauren Kate. We have the complete poems of John Keats, Stig of the Dump by Clive King, The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian by C.S. Lewis. Again, this is the film cover version. How Green Is My Valley by Richard Llewellyn. The Bad Mother's Handbook by Kate Long, possibly one of my biggest books. Le Mot d'Arthur by Sir Thomas Malory. And finally on this shelf, A Court of Thorn of Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This next shelf is my books, which are a little bit too big to be put in the rest of the shelves. And some of them include my oldest books that I own and my historical books that I own. This is part of my Rory Gilmore reading collection, but again, it's too big to fit it anywhere else. This is The Art of War by Sun Tzu, On the Other Side by Carrie Hope Fletcher, Ravenspur, Rise of the Tudors by Con Iggulden, The Return of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. These 5 books are some of my oldest books that I own. I'm not going to pull them out because some of them are actually falling apart. We have The Legend of the Latin Quarter by Arthur Moss and Evelyn Marvel, Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen, a first edition Jane Austen dictionary from 1930 something, and my oldest book that I own, I have said about it in a previous video, Haunted Homes by Ingram. It is from 1886, I think. Birds Being Murdered. Now we have Haunted Wales by Peter Underwood, Richard III by David Baldwin, Jasper Tudor by Terry Breverton, Elizabeth of York, Amy Licence, Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About the Tudors But Were Afraid to Ask by Terry Breverton, Tudor Wales by Nathan Amin. And one book that didn't fit in anywhere else because there was no space is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. Finally, on the last shelf, we have Cinder by Marissa Mayer, Carved from Coal by Anne Morgan, Why the Whales Came by Michael Morpurgo, Me Before You by Jojo Moyes, After You by Jojo Moyes, Pemberley Manor, Darcy and Elizabeth for Better for Worse by Catherine L. Nelson, Tales of Mystery and Imagination by Edgar Allan Poe, and Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. Northern Lights by Philip Pullman, Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe, How I Live Now by Meg Rossoff. As you can see, this is the film cover version. Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. I have two versions of The Silver Sword. This one is my latest one, which I am going to do notes in for a course on scriptwriting because I would love to adapt this one. And this is my oldest version, which was my mum's, I think, and it's really old. I can't actually open it anymore because it is fallen apart. Black Beauty by Anna Sewell, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift, Brooklyn by Colin Tobin, and Since There's No Room, The Once and Future King by T.H. White, who has to sit on the top here. If you have any questions, comments or concerns below, pop a comment down below, and if there's any videos you'd like to see me do, let me know. Hope you're all well, take care, bye bye.